ready to go. Thank you everyone for coming. Today we have a AFN press conference on compensation announcement to a removed child and removed child family classes launch. We have some speakers lined up, but first, before we begin, we want to start in a good way, and we have asked Dennis Whiteford, an elder, to say a few words to begin our press conference.
Good morning. Thank you to the AFN and to the Assembly here for giving me this opportunity to speak a little bit. And to ask for our creators
Important words. First, we will hear from AFN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse Nepinak.
Thank you, Chimigwach, Dennis. I want to thank you so much for your leadership. I know you were around when this started way back when, and we're here today. And I think before I start off, my heart goes out to every family that has had to endure the racist child welfare system in this country. And we have a lot of work to do to try and make this country a different place for our First Nations families. There's too many suffering out there. So again, I want to thank Dennis Whitebird for the opening prayer. I want to congratulate and thank Grand Chief Kyra Wilson. I'm so proud of you, and I know that there's a lot of work to do, and I know that you have a lot of work to do on this issue, and I want to also thank our former Grand Chief and current Chief, Derek Nepinak. Thank you so much for being on the Settlement Implementation Committee. And of course, we've got Dean Janvier joining us from Deloitte, and we want to thank the press and the administrator and the press for being here today. We are here today to talk about the launch of the claims period for 2 of the classes under the First Nations Child and Family Services and Jordan's Principle Settlement. Starting on March 10th, 2025, less than a month away, less than 30 days away, eligible claimants will finally be able to apply for their portion of the historic $23.3 billion compensation settlement that the AFN negotiated with the Government of Canada in 2023. First Nations children who were removed from their homes on reserve in the Yukon between April 1st, 1991 and March 31st, 2022, and their caregiving parents or caregiving grandparents will be able to submit a claim for compensation. Today, we are here to let these claimants know that it's time to get ready. After years of fighting for the recognition of harms done through Canada's discrimination, we are now less than a month from the point where eligible claimants for the removed and removed child family classes can submit their application forms. We want to thank everyone who took part in this long process of negotiations and brought us to this point. We especially want to lift up our representative plaintiffs. It's been difficult on our plaintiffs, a lot of work, I lift them all up. Karen, Melissa, Ashley, Noah, Carolyn, Richard, Xavier, Jeremy, Jonathan, and Zach. They and their loved ones have shown incredible strength, standing up for First Nations children and families that had not been heard. We thank you for your courage in this fight and for being pillars of advocacy throughout this process. We also recognize Chief Derek Nepinak for his extraordinary leadership and passion, and Deloitte for being good partners in bringing this together. They will share more details about the Get Ready plan that we are announcing here today, which is all about awareness and helping class members prepare for the claims period. When the claims period opens on March 10th, there will be additional information about eligibility, what to expect in the claims process, and more details on compensation. First Nations will not need to pay anyone to help them submit a claim or navigate this process. From the administrator's call center to online resources to help you complete your claim, to a network of claim helpers across this country, help is available and you're not alone. The Get Ready campaign will include resources to support claim submissions, mental wellness, and fraud reporting, along with the public service announcements in First Nations and other media. Getting ready also mean updates to the 7 other classes of plaintiffs that are still waiting. Each requires a separate claims process that must be approved by the federal court. So we want to make sure that these claimants know that we are working hard for you, and I want to lift up the Assembly of First Nations legal team that has been working so very hard to get those other forms done through the court process. You have been waiting far too long for this acknowledgement of the harm that you experienced in this racist system. While no amount of money can make up for the harms done or for your childhood, this $23 billion compensation settlement, the largest in Canada's history, is an important acknowledgement of the harm First Nations experienced in this racist system that has broken so many lives and so many families. It has been a long journey to get here. We think back to 2019, when at the request of the Assembly of First Nations, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal ordered Canada to pay eligible First Nation children and their parents and caregivers compensation for the harms that they had suffered. It took another 2 years before Canada entered into negotiations to settle the lawsuits. And 2 years before that, the tribunal finally approved the $23.3 billion settlement offer in July of 2023. I'm so proud of our First Nations people for their resilience and their love for our children. Everyone in this room, I lift you all up. All of you are doing to correct these historical wrongs and make reconciliation meaningful. Standing here with all of you today talking about our First Nations kids makes me think of our late Grand Chief Kathy Merrick and Justice Murray Sinclair. And I believe their spirits are with us, guiding us. I remember Justice Murray Sinclair used to ask us, have we been good in life? Have we been good relatives? Have we done all that was needed? While this work we are doing together, we are very confident we are being good relatives. We are doing what is needed for the next generation of First Nations and for Canada. With this rollout of this historic settlement, we are witnessing a shift in this country, and you're all part of it. There's so much work ahead, but by strengthening our relations united, we can achieve anything. And so now together, let's get ready. And Chimi Gwetch for being here. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, National Chief. Next, we will hear from AMC Grand Chief Kyra Wilson.
Which, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Kyra Wilson. I'm the Grand Chief for the Assembly Manitoba Chiefs. I just want to say thank you, Dennis, for the prayer, former Chief, Grand Chief. I appreciate everything that you do for us and the work that we continue to do for our people, so thank you for that. Thank you, National Chief, as well as Chief Nepinak, former Grand Chief, as well as Dean Janvier that I have sitting beside me from Deloitte, and thank you for the work that we see today from the Assembly of First Nations. I just want to be able to speak to some of the work that we have been seeing, nationally as well as regionally. There has been years of work and advocacy, and that's actually starting back from 2007 when there was the launch of the human rights at the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. So here we are today, and families have been waiting a long time to get to this place where we are seeing a claims process for the first two classes. That's where we will see the beginning of payment and compensation to hundreds and thousands of First Nations families for the harm that they've experienced when navigating and being involved in the child welfare system. There is so much work that we all need to do to support our children, and being in the child welfare system, a broken system, is devastating for our children and for our families. And so as we sit here today, I acknowledge everyone for the work that they've been doing in terms of child welfare reform, but also acknowledging, the harms and the hurt that our families have experienced. And so when we look at Manitoba, in our region, we have the highest rates of children in the child welfare system. And that is something that we've known for years, actually. And that's work that even our former Grand Chief, Derek Nepinak, worked on here in our region as well. And so we see the impact that the system has had on our families. And here we are today, wanting to support children and families that have had to deal with some of that hurt. And so when we look at, the Assembly of First Nations and our National Chief, I know that they will have all of that information and will provide that support to the communities. And, I do commit to working with our National Chief and all of our leadership to ensure that information is shared throughout our region here, and making sure that families and communities have everything that they are needing. And so when we talk about the support that is available, from my understanding, there is definitely going to be support available for all of the families. It is going to be trauma informed, as well as focusing on that mental health and wellness. So you're not having to retell the stories and the hurt that you've experienced when you've had to enter into the child welfare system as whether a child or a parent or a caregiver. So there is going to be supports that will be available for our families during this process. And we'll make sure that, you are taken care of during this time as we talk about the process of compensation. And so I'm just here today to uplift our families. As National Chief has said, we are here today to support you in this process. We will work hard for you, and we will make sure that you feel cared for during this process. And so I acknowledge, the work for the Assembly of First Nations, as well as the representative plaintiffs and the work that you have done. And it's been a lot of work. I acknowledge you, and thank you for advocating for our families. Thank you for advocating for our nations, and thank you for doing that work. So we're proud to be here today through this new process. All the information will be shared with you, and I look forward to supporting our families and our nations. Miigwech.
Thank you, Grand Chief. Next, we will hear from Chief Nepinak, a member of the Settlement Implementation Committee.
Miigwech. Ujuni Shuaganak Niben Makwa, Dishnakas Makwan Totem. I'm Derek Nepinak. I'm the chief of the Minnegozibi Anishinaabe, formerly known as the Pine Creek First Nation. We're 5,600 Anishinaabe strong, and we have a long history in our community of children being taken away from families, as the foundation of the residential school built in the 1800s is still in our community, and we still have memories that resonate throughout our community and are passed on from generation to generation about how colonial Canada normalized the apprehension and the theft of our children, raising them in foreign places, foreign locations, away from their family, away from their language. I'm honored to be a member of the Settlement Implementation Committee. The Settlement Implementation Committee was struck as part of the final settlement agreement on compensation. I'm one of the non-council members of the Settlement Implementation Committee and stand for a 3-year mandate, having been vetted through a competitive process through the Assembly of First Nations, executive, and then federally appointed through the federal court. I want to thank Dennis for the prayer this morning. I acknowledge the lands that we're on here as the Anishinaabe, Innu, Ojibwe, Dene, and Dakota people here in Treaty 1. As the National Chief and Regional Chief AMC Grand Chief have said, today is a day of good news, important news, and we're proud to stand here and share. The legal process towards compensation has been a long one, but we're closer than ever to the actual distribution of money to the first 2 of 9 classes in this historic class action settlement. If you were removed from your home as a child between April 1st, 1991 and March 31st, 2022, while living on reserve or in the Yukon and placed into care funded by Indigenous Services Canada, or if you're a caregiving parent or grandparent of a child that was removed, this claims process launch beginning March 10th is for you. Claimants who are over the age of majority will have 3 years to submit their claim. Minors can submit a claim up to 2 years before they reach the age of majority. However, if eligible, they'll not receive their compensation until they have reached age of majority. Over the next month before the claims process opens, this is a time to get ready to submit your claim. As the National Chief said, you'll need a mailing address, a government-issued ID, and a bank account. And the representative from Deloitte can speak more to that information. There are 9 classes in this historical class action, and each class requires a separate claims process that must be approved by the federal court. The claims process for the remaining 7 classes are in development. If you are not a removed child or a caregiver of a removed child, please know that the Settlement Implementation Committee and the parties are still working hard on your behalf. I want to echo what the National Chief alluded to about bad actors out there who may try to prey on First Nations claimants. We want you to all be aware you do not need to hire a lawyer. You do not need to pay anyone to help you submit a claim. No one from the administrator Deloitte will reach out to you or request your personal information, financial details, or ask you to tell your story of being in the system. If someone does this, this is fraud. Please report it to the administrator. If you report fraud, you can help keep someone else safe, protect the compensation rightfully owed, and prevent further injustice from taking place. Claimants who have questions or need support with their claim can contact the administrator's contact center, who can connect them to a claims helper if needed. I also want to thank the representative plaintiffs. We can't thank them enough. Karen, Melissa, Ashley, Noah, Carolyn, Richard, Xavier, Jeremy, Jonathan, and Zacchaeus, thanks for all that you've done. Thanks for sharing your story and being the role models and standing up there and pushing for this. Without that push and without the backing of the political leadership, some of these things would never come to pass, yet they're long overdue. I want to thank the national chief and the negotiation team for moving the largest class action settlement in the history of Canada. This is a very big moment in our process. But I want to say that this is not the final solution. I want to add that although compensation is rolling out to individuals in the process, we also have to turn our mind to long-term reform of the First Nation CFS system. I'm speaking specifically to a final settlement agreement that was offered for the chiefs to consider in October of 2024. I still believe today, sitting here, there's a monumental failure on the part of us as chiefs to push the final settlement agreement across the finish line and to have the rollout of that final settlement agreement happening right now in real time. I believe that we still have a lot of work to do in long-term reform. I believe that communities that voted in favor of this settlement agreement, including our community, the Minnegozibi and Anishinaabe, should have an opt-in provision or an opt-in opportunity into the final settlement agreement, despite the fact that there was a large group of chiefs who voted against it. I believe that the voting period was infiltrated, let's say, by lobby groups and organizations that support the status quo of top-down child and family services that are run by provincial mandates and even funded by provincial mandates to usurp the conversation and to ensure that the settlement agreement failed. I can speak to this as a chief of my community, and that's what I observed and that's what I believe. I believe that the conversation has to continue and there has to be room for communities to opt in to the final settlement agreement to really put, I think, some of the finishing touches on this process for the benefit of the children and families back home. Some of our communities are ready, and I can say the Minnegozibi and Anishinaabe are ready to take responsibility and to implement the types of services for children and families that are long overdue. Thank you for all being here on this important day. Miigwech. Thank you.
Next we will hear from the
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Also, I'd like to give my thanks to Dennis Whitebird for the prayer this morning, to the National Chief, Cindy Woodhouse, Grand Chief Kyra Wilson, and Chief Derek Nepinak. Thank you for being here today to participate in this important announcement. 1 month from today, we will be opening the claims process and accepting claims for the removed child class and the removed child family class. And we're very happy about this. It's been a long time coming. A lot of work has gone into this. And there are some differences with this class action compared to other class actions in the past. And one of the key differences is there is a claimant support framework that's been put in place. So when the class action opens for accepting claims, we will have regional liaisons available in each region across the country, and these people will be available to be the point of contact for all the First Nations and their organizations in each region who are looking for information pertaining to the settlement agreement. That'll be their role, is to provide that information and answer questions and bring forward any concerns they're hearing. As well, we have a contact center that'll be open every day. Anyone can reach out through various means through that contact center, including a toll-free number. So that resource will be available. They'll have frequently asked questions, and people will be trained to answer those questions and provide most of the information that most people will require in order to file their claim. We know that there may be some people who require additional information or have more of a complex scenario that they'd like to discuss. And for that, we'll have more than 120 claims helpers available at any given time, available every day for individuals to speak to assist them with finding out information or answering questions. assist them filling out their forms, and if an appeal is required at some point, to assist them with the appeal. So these are some of the supports, and we know that from past claims that there may be individuals who are experiencing many challenges in their lives and require extra support. And for that, we'll also have a network of service coordinators available in every region for individuals. And those people will help to understand what their challenges are and be able to provide them with referrals to existing services that are available in their regions, such as mental wellness and other supports. So that's the main supports that will be available. And so we're looking forward to receiving the claims and processing them as quickly as possible, and getting the compensation out to the individuals who deserve that. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, very much. I believe we have time now for just a few questions on this compensation claim process specifically.
For the two classes you mentioned, how many people in Manitoba do you think are eligible for this?
I'll send that to Deloitte. I know they've been looking at the numbers, but certainly for sure right across the country, there's probably about 300,000, we're estimating 300,000 First Nations people out of the million that we have. See how big that class is for First Nations. Many First Nations people from across the country. I don't know specifically for the Manitoba region. Perhaps Dean can better answer that.
Thank you. The current estimate is approximately 10% of the class size. So if the class size is approximately 125,000 people, then approximately 12,500 people would be for the removed child class in Manitoba.
Plus their parents.
And would that be for the two classes?
That would be for the removed child class, and then the removed child family class would be approximately 2 persons per removed child.
Can you talk a bit more about the sort of outreach process with connecting to potential claimants? What kind of strategies are you planning to use to get the word out?
We have a national communications strategy and a public campaign that will be rolling out, and you should be seeing those ads any day now, and they'll be going on throughout the life of the claims period.
Chief Nepinak, Nepinak, would you be able to talk a bit about some of the, you mentioned these third-party interference or lobbyists. Would you be able to expand on that a bit?
Sure, thank you. The long-term reform initiative for First Nation CFS is a long time coming, because what we've seen historically is the creation of systems that take Indigenous children away from their parents and their families and their communities, starting before the residential schools, through the residential schools, and then into what we call the modern-day CFS systems. A lot of these systems are top-down. They're provincial mandates creating agencies and creating laws and regulations that were for a long time fueled and funded based on business plans that promoted the apprehension of children for families. I mean, that's a truth, and I think we can all accept that that truth is. Now, we're not that far removed from that. There's been certain shifts in provincial policies across Canada, but we're still stuck in that phase. We're still stuck in a phase where there is a very, very, I'll call it a wealthy status quo, a bureaucratic elite that has emerged within our agencies across the country that want to protect the wealth of the agencies. Some of these agencies have millions of dollars on deposit, but meanwhile, we don't have any JP money to be able to support children and families in need. So what we've seen is we've seen the lobby created and people funded to discredit the final settlement agreement, and to actually even turn into voters on the AFN forum floor when it's actually supposed to be a chiefs and leadership forum. We've seen non-chiefs taking up space, discrediting the settlement agreement, and unfortunately winning enough popular support and criticism to strike down the only solution that we've been offered in many, many years, and that was the $48 billion settlement agreement.
And with this idea of opting in, what do you think that would look like?
Well, we've seen in the past the federal government has brought forward legislation that allows for opt-in provisions for communities that are ready or willing to participate in a statutory framework. We've seen that provincially as well. I don't see any reason why the Assembly of First Nations cannot create a committee of the willing and allow for communities that are okay with the final settlement agreement in its current form and that supported the final settlement agreement outside of Ontario to opt in through some mechanism. I believe that there would be room for that. I'm fully aware that there is a National Chiefs Children's Commission that's been created by certain parties and that it's been widely supported. But I also believe that there's a lot of chiefs out there in communities that would be okay with the settlement agreement as it is now, because it's needed now. We don't need a settlement next year or in 5 years or in 10 years or when the next Liberal government comes back to power. We need it yesterday. And the final settlement agreement was the only solution that's been offered in a very long time.
And do you have any comments on, about specifics on interference with this deal?
I can say generally through observation of sitting on the floor and participating and watching the ebb and flow of the conversation, you can see perhaps experts in social work who are well taken care of and well funded and motivated to make sure that the final settlement agreement didn't get across the finish line. You don't have to look too far to find who some of those participants are.
For someone filing a claim, how long would it take roughly to get that compensation?
We're targeting approximately 6 to 12 months for payment after someone files their claim. Unless there are complications with their claim or they're missing some information, it could take longer. So we're asking people to please check and double check their submission before filing it with the administrator.
Is that helpline available for people who get ready?
Yes, there's a toll-free number available for people to call into the call center at any time.
Is that number, can you give it to us? Or is it on the-
Yeah, it's 833-852-0755.
And are you able to say, if there's if it's for anyone who can answer this, the timeline on the other 9 classes, when we could expect that claims process to begin?
Yeah, certainly. Look, those are coming through the courts. We're waiting for the court to make sure that they approve the application forms, because they're all different application forms for each of the classes. Certainly, though, the removed child class and their caregiving, their parents and their grandparents, that was, I'm glad that we're here today, starting with that. And I think that there's other classes that have to come through, and we'll be pressuring the courts, of course, over and over again to get those application approved. And, I know the courts can take many years sometimes, but for sure, our legal team at the AFN will be pushing and pushing to get those out the door so that we can open up more classes. Thank you.
All
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I understand some of our chiefs and national chiefs will be available for round if interested, but for now, we'll end our testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.